Hello and welcome everyone. Welcome to another session of English class with Gallery Teachers. If you haven't met me before, I am one of the online teachers with Gallery Teachers Online. And it's great to see you all. We're looking at functional practical language, specifically how to disagree politely, right? Or how to disagree with someone especially about an opinion without causing offense. Likely. So here are some techniques for disagreeing tactfully. Okay, tactfully, again, sort of diplomatically without causing offense if possible. There are different ways we can do this, and you probably won't want to use all of these techniques every time. It'll be very long, but these are all really helpful in different ways. So one thing you can do is signal some doubt or uncertainty about the opinion you disagree with. For example, I'm not sure about that. The language we looked at in a previous English class about language for expressing uncertainty will be really helpful here. Another thing you can do or is acknowledge the other person's point of view as a valid opinion. Okay, you might not agree with what this person thinks, especially their opinion, but we can still, it is their opinion. It is valid, right? So we can acknowledge this. This is a very tactful, polite thing to do. So you may have a point, is one expression for this. You can express a polite apology and then state your opposing opinion. Now, when we say apology, it doesn't mean that, that you've done something wrong and that you're apologizing for it, right? Or that you've made a mistake, so you need to say sorry. Sometimes apologies, apologies can be really good ways to soften your language, make it a bit less direct and confrontational. It doesn't mean you've got something to apologize for exactly. It's just a nice language strategy. And certainly in English, we do this quite a lot. So express some doubt or uncertainty about the opinion you don't agree with. Acknowledge their point of view as valid. And also express some kind of apology before then giving your opposing opinion. So you might want to practice some of these different techniques. Like I've written here, whatever technique you use, always keep calm, okay? Especially if it's about an emotional issue for you. And try to maintain and be thoughtful and respectful throughout the conversation. That's how you're going to get the best discussions anyway. Right. So here actually, phrases to signal doubt and uncertainty. Let's start there. Here, I'm really recycling some of our phrases for expressing uncertainty. So you will probably recognize a lot of these. I'm not sure about that. I'm not really sure about that. I don't think that's true. I'm not sure I agree with that. It's a nice expression. I have my doubts about that. I very much doubt that. That last one is stronger. So again, even if you don't feel that uncertain, if you want to soften your language, you can use some of these expressions. I don't think that's correct, or I don't think that's quite right, especially if the person is expressing a fact or stating a fact that you don't think is correct. Another one, I'm not 100% sure about that, or certain. It's difficult to say for sure, but I think, well, it's difficult to say for certain, but I think. And if you want to take sort of a middle ground or a middle position, you can say, I see both sides on this. Or if it's something about what's better, you can say, I can see the pros and cons of both. Now, we're moving on to another technique, which is to acknowledge the other person's opinion before you disagree with it. This is particularly good for maintaining social relationships, I think. Nice expressions to do this. I see what you mean. However, or but, you have a point, or we can extend that. You may have a valid point, but for example, like Lena said, I see it differently. That's a fair argument, or that's a valid point. I can see your point. However, or like a few of you mentioned before, thank you, I understand where you're coming from. There are some other verbs for this. I appreciate where you're coming from, or I see where you're coming from, before you then state your opposing opinion with a word like however, but. A few more. You're entitled to your own opinion, but I see it differently. You're entitled to your opinion. There you are expressly saying that, yes, everybody has the right to their own opinion. You're acknowledging this. I respect your point of view on this, but these two are particularly good in a formal situations, like a more formal discussion or debate. I respect your point on this, but that might be true, but, well, that may be true. And I hear what you're saying, but, for example, I have to disagree. So you're entitled to your own opinion. I respect your point of view. That might or may be true, but, and I hear what you're saying. And remember that last technique we looked at when we apologize for having a differing opinion. So again, like I said before, this is not apologizing because you've made a mistake or that you've done something wrong. It's more just to, as a polite way to soften our language, make it a bit less direct or confrontational. I'm sorry, but I disagree with you on that. Or, I'm sorry, but I have to disagree with you on that. Notice the optional use of modal verbs here. These are, in fact, modals of obligation, right? Have to, must. It's quite a clever way to say, you know, I have no choice but to disagree with you. Okay, it's not what I want to do, but I have to disagree with you, right? Because, you know, I have a very different opinion. So I'm sorry, but I have to disagree with you on that. I'm afraid I don't agree, because this is something you hear a lot. I'm afraid, well, I'm afraid that. This is really nice way of sort of expressing a little softening apology before you state some kind of disagreement. Now, yes, we use the adjective afraid to be afraid in when we have fear about a situation, when we're scared about something, but this is different, right? It's again, it's sort of you're signaling a regret that you can't, in this example, that you can't agree with them. So I'm afraid I don't agree. I'm sorry to disagree, but, or if you want an intensifier, I'm really sorry to disagree, but I see it differently, for example. And the last two examples are in bold because they're a bit more formal, but they are really nice in a more formal situation. I hate to disagree, but, and I must beg to differ, or I beg to differ. Quite formal there, but sometimes it's useful language, those situations. So let's go through those quickly again. I'm sorry, but I must disagree with you on that. I'm afraid that I can't agree. I'm sorry to disagree, but, and the more formal, I hate to disagree, but, and I beg to differ. Right, just a few more. Now you actually do need to state your disagreement. So we've looked at all those techniques. Now the phrase is to actually disagree. Again, we can use modals of obligation. I have to disagree with you on this, or I must disagree with you on this. If there is a really strong contrast of opinions, you can say, I totally disagree. Like some of you have volunteered, I see it differently, or I see it quite differently. From my perspective, it's quite different. Or from my point of view, it's very different. I don't think that's true, or I don't think that's accurate. And again, more formal, but really nice. Respectfully, I don't agree. Or with respect, I disagree. Okay, so the phrase is to disagree. I have to disagree. I see it differently from my perspective or from my point of view. And I don't think that's true. And respectfully or with respect, I don't agree. Let's imagine that you've had quite a long discussion with another person. It's been polite, it's been amicable and respectful, wonderful. But you've reached some kind of stalemate, you're not moving your position and the other person is not moving their position on a topic. That's okay. You can disagree amicably, and we have some expressions in English to do that. It looks like we'll have to agree to disagree, or simply, we will have to agree to disagree. That's a favorite. Or simply, let's agree to disagree. Never mind. Let's not argue about it. Let's leave it at that, shall we? Okay, that means to leave this topic. And the last one, perhaps we should move on. Or perhaps we should move on to another topic, meaning to change the subject of the conversation if it's really not progressing anywhere, or if you think it might start to get more confrontational. You can use some of these nice expressions. Thank you very much.